On September 18, 1931, Japan, in need of raw materials for its growing industries, invaded Manchuria, an industrial region in northeastern China rich in minerals and coal. In the years that followed, there were multiple conflicts between Japan and China, but full-scale war officially began with the Marco Polo Bridge Incident on July 7, 1937. This event marked the start of the Second Sino-Japanese War, which lasted until Japan's surrender on September 2, 1945. During the war, Japan achieved major victories, capturing key cities like Beijing and Shanghai. In December 1937, Japanese forces entered Nanjing, then the capital of China. The invasion led to horrific atrocities, including a mass-killing campaign that resulted in the deaths of approximately 300,000 civilians and unarmed soldiers. Among the many brutal acts committed, one of the most infamous was a contest between two Japanese officers, Toshiaki Mukai and Tsuyoshi Noda. Their challenge was to see who could execute 100 people the fastest using a sword. This gruesome competition was widely reported in Japanese newspapers, with regular updates on their progress. Tensions between Japan and China had been escalating since the invasion of Manchuria, even before the official start of World War II. Under existing treaties, Japan had military personnel stationed in southern Manchuria to protect their railway interests. However, Japan aimed to expand its control. On September 18, 1931, they staged an explosion near the South Manchuria Railroad in Mukden, now Shenyang. Though the damage was minor, Japan used it as a justification to rapidly seize Mukden and other cities along the railway. By February 27, 1932, all of Manchuria was under Japanese control. On March 1, Japan established the puppet state of Manchukuo, which remained until August 18, 1945, when Japan surrendered. Although several minor clashes occurred between Japan and China, the situation intensified on July 7, 1937, when Japanese soldiers conducting exercises near the Marco Polo Bridge requested access to the town of Wanping to search for a missing soldier. The Chinese garrison refused entry, leading to gunfire. Negotiations failed, and both sides reinforced their troops, escalating the conflict. This incident triggered the Second Sino-Japanese War, leading to significant battles, including the fall of Nanjing. The Battle of Shanghai, which lasted from August 13 to November 26, 1937, was one of the largest and bloodiest battles of the war. It involved nearly 1 million troops and was later compared to the Battle of Stalingrad. After months of intense fighting, Japan emerged victorious. Japanese General Iwane Matsui, leading the 10th Army, was determined to capture Nanjing, believing its fall would lead to China's surrender. When Japanese forces entered the city on December 13, 1937, they encountered minimal resistance. However, what followed was a period of extreme violence. Many civilians and surrendered Chinese soldiers lost their lives, and the city was left in ruins. The two officers involved in the beheading contest, Mukai and Noda, participated in these events. As reported in Japanese newspapers, by December 13, Mukai had executed 106 people, while Noda had killed 105. Unable to determine who reached 100 first, they decided to extend their contest to 150 executions. The competition was sensationalized in newspapers under headlines celebrating their actions. However, most of their victims were defenseless prisoners rather than soldiers in combat. The executions were carried out using traditional Japanese military swords. The victims, often bound and kneeling, were beheaded one by one. The officers took turns delivering swift strokes, ensuring that each execution was recorded as part of their contest. In some cases, the executions were carried out in front of Japanese troops, who watched as the officers took pride in their efficiency. Reports indicated that some victims were forced to wait in line, fully aware of their impending fate. The psychological torment added to the brutality of the killings. Noda later admitted that he personally engaged in very few direct fights. Instead, they would call out to Chinese soldiers, who would rush forward, only to be executed in an organized manner. Their contest was ultimately more about mass killings than actual combat. The Nanjing invasion resulted in widespread devastation. Families suffered immensely, with countless innocent civilians caught in the violence. The atrocities committed during this period remain among the darkest chapters of the conflict. The war ended in 1945 with Japan's surrender, bringing an end to years of suffering. After the war, Mukai and Noda were arrested by the Allied forces and put on trial by the Nanjing War Crimes Tribunal. Both were found guilty of war crimes, particularly for their role in the beheading contest and the mass executions. They were sentenced to death and executed by firing squad in Nanjing on January 28, 1948. Their execution marked a symbolic moment in holding individuals accountable for the atrocities committed during the war.